A couple things I want to get into with you, Bob, while we've got you. First off, I want to ask you about the Gregg Doyel piece. I know you wrote about him the other day, and obviously most people in the Indiana area and really probably nationally know what went down a couple of weeks ago whenever they had the Caitlin Clark press conference with the Fever, and he did the heart sign and essentially got clowned for everything that happened during that press conference and the way that he kind of carried himself. And then he had the article that he wrote afterward, or his column, kind of apologizing, but kind of not apologizing, depending on how you look at it, I guess. But you were able to find out some stuff about what happened in the aftermath, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, well, first of all, when your lead columnist, well, actually your only columnist, decides to disappear, Gregg is very prolific. If you read him, he writes 5 times a week. So when he suddenly disappears in the middle of a playoff run with the Fever starting, and it happens just a week or two after this whole fiasco at the Caitlin Clark press conference, it's easy to put 2 and 2 together. And I just made some phone calls and sent out some texts and found out that he had, as I suspected, been suspended. I did not know initially that he also is not going to be allowed to cover the Fever live at the field house for the course of the entire year. Honestly, I thought it was a little bit harsh. I may be coming at it from the perspective of a columnist. You'd like to think that all your good work previous to that bad moment would give you enough of a reservoir of goodwill that they would say, all right, I didn't think it rose to the level of sexual harassment or misogyny or sexism or flirting or anything like that. I just thought it was a really unfortunate, dumb, it was cringy. It was cringy and creepy. And I felt bad for everybody involved. And I do feel bad for Gregg because we've all done and said stupid things that we wish we could, put back in our mouths and wish it never came out. But, this is the price he's got to pay, and he's going to be paying a price for quite some time, I imagine.
Do you think maybe the suspension from covering any Fever games in person has anything to do with maybe the IndyStar was thinking, you know what, if he's there in person, there may be people who recognize where he's at and they're just kind of heckling him the entire time. Maybe it's more so, maybe not a protection, but just kind of trying to keep it out of the field house itself, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I mean, Gregg's a big boy. He can handle it. I mean, it's just like when I had the Deflategate story, they were questioning whether to send me to New England. I'm like, hell yeah, man. play some music. As long as nobody shoots me in the face, I should be okay. So no, I don't think that's it. I think this is purely, them being penal about it. And I don't understand that element of it. I can see the suspension, I guess, but as a journalistic entity, your job is to provide the best coverage of the teams that we care about. And look, you cover the Fever better when your columnist is there, and so I'm like, who you hurting? Seems to me you're hurting the readers. You're hurting the people who consume your content. So I don't know. I would need to talk at length with some of the Gannett mucky mucks to understand what exactly they're thinking there. But it seems like a lot. But hopefully it will maybe have a good impact in some way, shape, or form on Gregg and everybody else involved.
Well, moving on from that, obviously you're covering the Pacers pretty extensively right now, and they're off to an 0-2 start in their series with the Knicks. They'll now return home to Indianapolis and face them this Friday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Do you think the Pacers still have a shot to kind of
Yes.
get their way back into this? Obviously, they're going to have their home games, and that's usually where you have the opportunity to see some momentum back. But what do you think the chances are right now of the Pacers being able to pull off what they did against Milwaukee?
Well, understand that the Knicks came into the series missing Julius Randle and Bojan Bogdanovic. They lost Mitchell Robinson, their backup big, for the entire series and probably for the whole playoffs. We don't know what's going on with OG Anunoby, who tweaked a hamstring last night and had to leave the game after scoring 28 points. And we don't know what's going on with Jalen Brunson with that foot. You know, a lot of times you're able to play because you got the adrenaline flowing and you can still play through the pain. But what happens this morning when he wakes up and the thing is blown up, if in fact that's what happens? So we don't know what kind of shape Brunson's going to be in for the games in Indianapolis. I have every confidence, I mean this, that they're going to win those 2 games and they're going to somehow win this series in 7 games. I know it looks bleak now, but I really feel like if they could just clean up a few things, get Siakam going, maybe get a lead and sustain it so that the game doesn't come down to a couple of calls at the end of the game, I think it's going to be a completely different situation here in Indianapolis, and I think they're going to win both games. I think they win both. I think they win game 3 by a lot.
One of the biggest complaints I've seen so far, at least for these first 2 games, is people saying that New York's getting rewarded for their physicality and the Pacers are getting punished for it. Is that kind of how you're seeing it?
Yeah, a little bit, but you know, the more physical team usually gets the calls. And the Knicks, I mean, Josh Hart, Isaiah Hartenstein, these guys go to the boards hard. I mean, you know, and here's the conundrum for the Pacers is that they want to get the rebound and run, but if you can't get the rebound, you can't run. So they've got to figure out a way to secure that rebound and get moving, and that's been a real problem for them. So I think if they tweak a couple of little things, I think they're going to be just fine. I don't imagine Siakam is going to continue to play as poorly. One of the big questions I had last night was where was TJ McConnell in the last 7 minutes? He did the best job of anybody on Jalen Brunson. He had, I think, 10 points, 12 assists, a couple of steals. I would have liked to have seen a backcourt of Halliburton and McConnell down the stretch. I think that might have made a big difference in the game.
One more question I'll ask you, and I'll let you go. I feel like, and this is a narrative you may want to avoid, but then this is sometimes some fan lunacy, I guess. But there was talk, especially in the first game, that if the game was close in the final stretch, that the refs were going to call it in favor of the Knicks because they're a bigger market and they want to see New York versus Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. How much do you believe that, if at all? And is that at all a factor into this kind of stuff when it comes to, you know, they're thinking about TV ratings and I know they'll if the NBA had their way, they would want New York and Boston, but they're not going to go out of their way, I wouldn't think, to make it happen.
Well, I may be dumb, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist, generally speaking. Now, you know, unless Tim Donaghy is doing the game, then that's a whole different deal. But you know, look, at home, you're always going to get a friendlier whistle. I have every reason to suspect that the Pacers will get a friendlier whistle at Gamebridge. Rick Carlisle, I don't know if you had a chance to see it. I know you've been busy. Rick Carlisle went on about a 2.5-minute soliloquy in his press conference, you know, tearing the officials a new one and saying, you know, we're a small market. We should get a fair shot. And I think it's strategic. I think it's putting a bug in the ear of the officials. I think it's what Phil Jackson did for years and years and years. Him and Pat Riley, they go back and forth complaining about the officials. So anyway, there's my other phone call. So I got to answer that.
That's fine. Well, Bob, I appreciate you. And, you know, thanks for the insight as always. And we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Take care.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever is happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.